Hello, folks. Welcome to the Tuesday Thought. I'm Father Pete. Glad you're with us. Hope you're having a good start to the week and a good start to Lent. This past weekend, I went up to the Luray Valley in Luray, Virginia, with a handful of buddies of mine. We all know each other from St. George's Camp at Shrinemont, where we worked together apparently over 20 years ago. And we had a lovely time. But one of the interesting things that happened was the guy that owns the cabin, my friend Josh, said that there had been recently some border disputes about where the property lines end up there. And I said, really? Like Yellowstone? Like these border disputes? And he said, yes. So what we had to do was traipse around in the woods and find a particular, like a little pin that had been put into the ground. It's a small, like a railroad tie. And then replace that with a big metal post, and it's got different colors at the top, so that everybody can clearly see where the property line is. And so we did that, but it got me thinking about borders and boundaries and signposts. And so I wonder if this Lent, it might be a good idea to take a look at your borders and your boundaries. You know, Jesus is very clear with the people that he's ministering to and with, and also in dialogue with. So he is happy to have dinner with the Pharisees, to teach in the synagogues, to answer any questions that are asked, although those are usually answered in the form of another question. But he clearly knows where he ends and where the world begins. And so often in relationships, you may have noticed that it's sometimes hard to find where you end and then where the other person begins. And so one thing we do is maybe we hold our borders and our boundaries very, very close so that no one can get in, or we expand our boundaries so much that everyone else's problems become our problems, and we lose a sense of who we are. And so this Lent, perhaps one thing to do would be to think about your own boundaries, and maybe they're healthy. It's always good to check. Or maybe your boundaries and your borders need to be expanded and opened up a little bit more, you know, or maybe they need to be reined in some, and you say, you know what, I'm actually losing a little bit of myself here. I need to pull back. If that doesn't work for you, think about signposts and this idea that we're driving this big stake into the ground and says, this marks the territory. Now, of course, for us, Jesus is that big stake in the ground, right? But what does that mean? What does that really mean for you? What does it really mean that we follow Jesus, that you follow Jesus, or that we want to? You know, some of this is aspirational. But this Lent, perhaps a practice could be articulating and identifying a spiritual practice that represents a stake in the ground, that represents that this is where Jesus is in my life. And of course, coming to church every Sunday is something that I know we all do. But aside from that, something every day, perhaps, that can be a little signpost that says, hey, God, I'm paying attention to you. So those are some thoughts for the beginning of your Lent. I hope that it is a blessed one, and I'll see you all on Sunday morning. God bless.